Okay, so hello everybody. Today we're going to be starting with genetics and inheritance. Just looking at the textbook that I use to make these notes from. Um, if you see there's tabs on the side, I use that just to show the different sections of the textbook. The different things that I use these highlighters, Stabilo Boss highlighters, if you want to pronounce it like that. I use the neon ones just because I think they look nicer on lined paper specifically. I use these fine liners, BB Light fine liners, and then I use these sticky notes. I like using the different colors and then connecting it with the different themes. Those are the tabs that I used within my textbook. Yeah, I got this with Take a Lot. Those are nice because you can write on them with a permanent marker. These are the notes I've done before. You see how I use the sticky notes? I normally cut them up and I stick them down to just give emphasis to specific parts of information. Yeah, so we're going to be doing something similar to that today. Those sticky notes I got from Checkers. Okay, the pens I use are they're called cores pens. I don't suggest them; they're not very nice. There's some activities in here as well. I'm not going to go through the activities. Um, I normally just go through the highlighted stuff. That's what we learn is supposed to be like that's what you need to know for the exam. So my notes are very summarized. Like I leave out unnecessary words like a and the and yeah and I try to just use keywords. Start off with a nice heading, genetics and inheritance. This is part of life science, so anything life science is automatically green for me. So I'm starting off green. I'm going to get a sticky note here, green sticky note, you see, matching. So what we're going to do in the sticky note is we're going to draw a chromosome, and then we're going to color in certain parts of the chromosome black. And that's just to show gene segments, or the parts of a chromosome that's genes. So that's normally just a segment of DNA that codes for a particular characteristic. So different characteristics like eye color, hair color, that type of thing. Yeah, so you normally see these dark colored in spots on the chromosome. Like if they show crossing over within meiosis, then you see they exchange these colors. So they can also ask you to draw a chromosome in a test. So, I mean, it's quite easy. It's just a circle and then four, what do you want to call that? Four legs on the circle, if you will. And then you just need to know labels. So, um, yeah, so that's like a 4 mark question drawing a chromosome. So that's just something to go over. There's not many things they'll ask you to draw in paper 2 life science, but that's definitely one thing to go over. I normally just highlight headings or specific words. I never highlight like a lot. Yeah, I just glue down the sticky notes. You don't have to glue them down. I just glue them down because I don't like when they flap up like that. Also, that glue is terrible. I don't suggest that glue. I got it from Chinatown. It sucks. I normally use like Prit, but Prit's expensive, man. Okay, now I'm just going over some key terminology. You need to know specifically alleles, which form different genes. So you get a dominant allele and you get a recessive allele. And we can go through that now. You get a genotype, which is your genetic composition. and a phenotype, which is your physical appearance. So the way that I remember which one is which is that genotype starts with the G and genetic composition starts with the G. And then phenotype starts with the P and physical starts with the P. So that's how I remember which one is which. So you'll see we have to know these for the genetic cross. So the phenotype, you would say like brown hair, and then the genotype would be like a big B and a small b, depending if you're homo or heterozygous. See, I'm just saying what it means to be dominant or recessive. So a dominant allele is the characteristic that is expressed in the phenotype when it is heterozygous or homozygous. So if it's homozygous dominant, it will be expressed, and if it's heterozygous, then it will be expressed. So that's the dominant, and then the recessive is masked in the phenotype by the dominant allele. So that means that the recessive is only expressed in homozygous recessive. So if we're doing capital B, small b, it needs to be two small b's in order for it to be expressed in the phenotype. That we'll look at more in the genetic cross, but it's a good thing to know. And it's also part of the laws for genetics. So yeah, just to show you the difference between heterozygous and homozygous. The way I explain this is probably not the best way, but it's what we learned in class that helps me remember. Heterozygous, if you're heterosexual, then you like a different gender. Homozygous, if you're a homosexual, then you like the same gender. So then heterozygous is two different alleles, and homozygous is two of the same alleles. It just helps you remember. I mean, if you want to find a different way to remember it, that's fine. And then you get sex-linked characteristics. So the characteristics that we spoke about, like hair color, eye color, they are specific characteristics that are linked to the sex, like your gender. So you need to know the chromosomes of a male and female. So male is X and Y, and female is X and X. And what's important here is that Y doesn't carry most genes. The gene that we put in our textbook is quite funny. The gene that actually goes to um, the Y chromosome is hairy ears. So that's why, and women don't have a Y chromosome, so women never have hairy ears. Yeah, I thought that was quite funny. But then there's other examples like hemophilia and color blindness, which is obviously on the X. Yeah, I'm doing a nice big heading for Gregor Mendel. This guy is the father of genetics, the one and only. Well, that's what he's considered to be. So when you asked who is the father of genetics in your test, please spell this right, because I swear it wasn't me, but there's some people who wrote like instead of Gregor, they wrote Gregory Mendel, and then you got it wrong. Like I know the marker knows that you know who you're talking about, but I mean if you spell it wrong, then that's yeah. So that's always the thing you got to worry about. Here we're using another sticky note. I don't really like these small ones because it's not really they don't stick well, and it also there's not really any way to put it. But here was a good place to put father of genetics. So he basically explained how genes are passed on from parents to offspring. And then he had three laws. I don't know whether these laws, if you need to know them or not. I, one teacher told me you do, one teacher told me you don't. So you do what you want to do. It's actually really simple. So, I mean, if they do ask you about it, I'm sure you'll know without having to go over them. So the first law, oh, wait, maybe I'm going too fast. Yeah, I already said that. Okay. The first law is the law of segregation. So we didn't really look at this here, but we looked at it in meiosis. Um, it basically means that your mother and your father's genes split. It's like you get half of your mother's genes and half of your father's genes. It doesn't work like 100% like that, but it's like if you think of it as half half, yeah. But basically they split. So you're not getting all of your mother's genes or all of your father's genes. And then the second one is law of dominance, which we literally just went through. Um, so if the alleles are different, the phenotype will show the dominant allele. And then the third one, the third one is the independent independent assortment. Yeah, third law is independent assortment. Let's see if I wrote that down right, because that sounds weird. Yeah, law of independent assortment or principle. So that is due to random arrangement of chromosomes. Gametes will therefore appear in different combinations. So this is in meiosis. I think is it metaphase where they line up at the equator and then they line up in any order, which means they can be pulled away in any order and whatever. So that just it causes variation. So that is one of the laws. So that's the third law. So that's the three laws. So you understand why I say like you don't need to know any of these experiments or anything, but you see how you would know what those laws are, having done the rest of the work and not just knowing his laws specifically. Because the law of dominance we know with dominant and recessive. And so, I mean, if they had to ask about this, I'm sure it'll be section A multiple choice if they had to. I doubt they will. I just drew a little border around the laws because it's like a specific piece of information.